Welcome to the Hustler's Manifesto podcast, where we give a macro perspective on labor, capitalism, rest, worth, productivity, and the reclamation of personal agency. I'm your host, Sarah Duran. I'm not here to tell you how to make a quick buck. I'm here to change the way work is done so we can live more meaningful lives right now instead of betting on an uncertain future. If you value this content, there are a few different ways you can support it. Go to The Hustler's Manifesto, all one word, all lowercase.com to subscribe to my Substack and get early access to all of the episodes, plus tons of great other content. Like and comment about this podcast on whatever platform you use to listen to it. Thanks for being part of the movement. Hi, Corey.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to have you join us, and we will get into all the things. We almost didn't get here because we were just having the best conversation before we even hit record. So, let's start off with the three questions that I ask everyone at the top, and I kind of just smush these all together because I think that they contribute to each other, and it's hard to answer them separately. So, tell us who you are. What is your work and why do you do it?
Okay, I'll answer the first two at the same time. So my name is Corey Fradin. Thanks again for having me. Excited to be here, all that stuff. So I'm a serial entrepreneur who's dabbled in a lot of different ventures over the years. Most recently, I ran a successful blog called Quick Boost where I wrote about things like personal development, time management, goal setting, stuff like that. Got over 1 million views, features in places like Forbes and Entrepreneur and MSN and others. Currently, I'm a co-founder of a book publishing agency called authors.io, where we ghostwrite, edit, design, and publish #1 bestsellers for busy professionals. And so that's who I am and what I do. And then why do I do it? I do it for fun. I enjoy entrepreneurship. I use fulfillment as kind of a guiding metric for a lot of what I do, fulfillment and joy and meaning. And so entrepreneurship is just something I didn't know I was going to be super into when I started off doing it a decade ago. But it's very much a driving force for me just because I enjoy it so much.
I love it. So we got connected because I think you read something of mine on Medium and then emailed me. I think that's how we got connected.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when people I'm all about making those kinds of connections. So almost always when people email me those kinds of things, I'm like, sure, let's hop on the phone. But then sometimes it's I'm like, is this just going to be a weird sales thing or what's this about or blah, blah, blah. And I remember we got on the phone or on the Zoom the first time and we had the most wonderful, authentic conversation about all kinds of crazy things, just a genuine conversation that you would have with someone that you met and are I actually connect with this person. This is lovely. And I remember walking away from the conversation and I even told my husband this afterwards. I was I talked to the nicest guy today and I thought it was going to be weird and salesy. And it was just a lovely, wonderful, authentic human conversation. And then you also proceeded to connect me with I think 3 to 5 other people who almost all of them I'm still in touch with all of them to this day. And I think I can't remember how long ago you and I first connected, but one of them is a part of a mastermind group that I run, and she also writes the most wonderful blog. She's Anna. She's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks, actually. And you connected me with Laura, who's a consultant she's a consultant who teaches people how to be consultants. And she has been so wonderful and is always just reach out if you need any help or want to brainstorm about things. So it's you're a connector. And it's one of the definitely something that I want to touch on. Talk to us about how that happened and why you do that and how you do that.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for all those compliments. That's so nice. I'm totally blushing. Yeah, well, I think we were kind of talking about this before we started recording. The whole connecting thing is not something that came naturally to me. I was saying too, I used to be very much if you didn't live right next to me, if you were like my next door neighbor, then I was just never going to see you because I just didn't have any like systems in place to like stay in touch. I never knew like, do I text them? When do I text them? Is it too much? Whatever. And then it was actually, but I always saw the value in like I like making friends and I like chatting and I like meeting new people and I'm very curious and all that kind of plays really well together. But I remember a couple of years ago, I was reading a book called How to Be a Power Connector, the 5 50 100 Rule by Judy Robinett. Have you heard of that book?
I haven't.
So she was kind of saying her system for like how to like meet new people and like how to kind of structure things and like here's the spreadsheet to make. And it was just a super good book. And I took so many notes because I'm like, oh, finally, like someone is telling me like how to like meet people and then like how to stay in touch with those people because it was those two things are super hard, like meeting them and staying in touch. And then I don't know. And then I was always so like selfish with my friendships in that I would like make a cool friend and then I would tell no one about them and I would never connect them because I'm like, I just want to keep them to myself. Like I want them to be my own special friend, whatever. But then even in that book, it was saying like how fun it is to put other people in touch and like not only is it fun putting them in touch, but then people will like you more because you're giving and you're helping these people. And then I read another book somewhat thereafter called Your Music and People by Derek Sivers. And that's actually it was like a book geared towards like musicians on like how to market your music. So, but it's really just a marketing book, just with a kind of specific target audience. And I remember he was talking about something in there too. Whatever. Those are just two books to check out in terms of marketing or networking. But all that to say, so kind of create that spreadsheet, you put everybody you know onto it, and then you have just kind of rules for when to reach out and like with the questions asked, like, what are you working on? And like, how can I help? And like, who are you looking to meet? Because maybe I know someone. And then it just becomes, it's just, in my case, has become kind of its own thing. And so like, yeah, I have, like, I know like, okay, I'll reach out to this person kind of once a month or this person every other month. And I'll take notes on what they're working on. And then maybe I can connect them in some way. And so that's kind of what it is in a nutshell, but it certainly didn't come naturally to me. But yeah, those books were really helpful and it's been a lot of fun doing it.
I mean, I think the thing that, and this is something I've been reflecting on a lot in my own business too, and in some recent like other interactions I've had with people, is like, and something that I like coach people on a lot is that people are always trying to find better clients, right? So they're always like freelancers come to me and they're like, how do I find better clients? And I'm like, well, how are you trying to find clients? And they usually tell me things like, oh, I'm on social media, or like have some sort of like lead generative PDF, or I do calls with people. But the thing about it is like you the thing that I appreciated so much about like the calls that I've had with you is like it's not about selling someone something, right? Like you're genuinely just like, I like connecting with people and I like connecting people with each other. And what that means is that like you're building these like these relationships that are based on relationships. You're not like looking at people like dollar signs. Like I think when people talk about like quote unquote networking, it's like you're looking at someone as if they're like a walking dollar sign. Like you're only talking to that person because you're like, maybe they're going to be a client or maybe they're going to find me a client, which is like, you can't go into those conversations with that mindset. Like it has to be about genuinely just like making connections with people. And when you do that, you end up like, whether it's that person or like 5 people removed from that person, like the rule of 3 or whatever, that eventually it does like the organic reciprocity of it like always comes around where it's like you do end up getting like better like work and better work relationships and better clients and better projects from having this like really organic, authentic network of people that you like. So it's about like, there's just something there that it was like the motivation of it is like, it's just about connecting with people. Like when you explain it, you're not like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's like how I build my business. You're like, I do this because I like connecting with people and I like connecting people with each other. Like,
yeah.
Period.
And I love talking to people who are also like super passionate about what they're doing because that's fun. And like, and even to your point about the whole like networking kind of concept or like handing out business cards at the conference or the convention or whatever, like that's never been super appealing to me. And so like when I jump on calls, like when you and I talk, I don't call them like networking calls. Like if my wife asks like, oh, who are you talking to? Or like, what kind of call are you doing today? Whatever. Or like my business partner is asking, I'm like, oh, I have a friend call at this time. I have a sales call at this time. I have a different friend call later today. Just because like in my, like, if I start calling it networking, then it starts to feel super gross and I don't like it
Yeah.
anymore. But if it's a friend call, it's like, whether it's a first time call with someone or like I've been talking to them for years, like they're just like my friend and we'll like, and if I put them in touch or I want to help them in some way or whatever, um, yeah, it's fun. And so, yeah, when I reached out to you, like I was trying to, and that kind of goes back to, I think Derek Sivers talks about in that book. If not, he wrote about it somewhere else. Just like reaching out to new people every day.
Mhm.
Because like at that time when you and I first met, I was writing a lot on Medium and I didn't necessarily need to meet all these people. I was just looking to commiserate with other Medium writers or, hey, what's working for you? What's working for me? And then, like share some information. And then it's like, oh, cool. What other things are you working on? Let's kind of help each other. And so it was never like, it was always like starting with the friendship first and knowing kind of like, there will be things we can share with each other. It'll be like tips and whatever, maybe other people we can connect each other with.
Totally. It
Um,
is it's something that this is gonna, I mean, like, I think these words are like overused right now, but like I don't have better words for it, so I'm just gonna use these words. But it is something that this is making me think about too is I've been talking to a lot of people lately about the difference between like a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. And so like going into all like one way to go into like quote unquote networking is like a scarcity mindset where you're like, I have to go into this and like get something tangible out of it.
mm,
Right? Like you're coming from a place where like you need something from this person. And coming into it from an abundance mindset is you're coming into these calls being like, I have something to offer. Like I have something, and not something that I'm asking this person to pay me for, but something where I'm just like, hey, like I've been on this like crazy entrepreneurial journey. You have been on this crazy entrepreneurial journey. How
sure.
can we like sometimes you just need to like be able to talk to people about that journey
I,
and be like, what is this crazy journey that we're on? And it's like all the twists and turns and the like.
yeah,
So it's just like a fundamentally different way, I think, of approaching it. Like when you're handing out the business cards at the conference, you're like, I have to make connections, and you're like quantifying it, and you're like watching people walk around like dollar signs, right? As opposed to like, I just want to like connect and like talk to cool people, and like
it's
the rest will
awesome.
figure
Yeah.
itself out.
So sorry to interject. It's awesome when
Yeah.
you go with the intention of like, it's the intention is very powerful because like recently I've been testing out like, hey, what if I treat these calls as sales calls and I'm trying to push them on something or I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, these suck, and I get off them and I feel like really sad. And then what if I just and so it's like, okay, so I need to treat them as like I'm making a new friend over here. And if I'm doing a sales call through like lead gen stuff, then okay, that's great. It's just a different intention. And I will say too, something I thought about was and I wanted to point out was so I'm super selfish and like that's like something very inherent in like my personality. And so like what I was saying earlier about like I would hoard my friends, but I would never connect them. I would never like I would keep one over here and I would get jealous to start talking to other people because like I wanted everything to myself. And it's like I'm still selfish, but I've just realigned the interest to be selfish in a way that helps you as opposed to only helping me. Like it's so I'm still making you like me. I'm still developing our friendship, but I'm doing it in a way that's also going to help you. So I can be selfish and have it benefit you and make you happy too. So we can be kind of doing our own thing as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love it. The
yeah,
other the other thing that's making me think of too is like when you're going into it, with this like whatever we want to call it, abundance mindset or like this mindset that it's literally just about building the connection. You're also not like I think a lot of people get into this place where like when you're thinking about having those types of like calls or conversations and you're thinking of it purely from a business building standpoint, then you're narrowing the type of people that you're talking to, right?
mm.
Because then you get caught in all these like words that people use, like avatar and like, you know what I mean? And those words are
Yeah,
important. Like when you are
yeah,
selling something, it is important to know who you're selling it to, right? I'm not saying that's not important, but I do think that actually this is part of like how I think about like goal setting for myself and when I work on goal setting with other people is this concept of like tight and loose, where like if you're so narrowly focused on like the one thing that you think is the pathway to get to that thing, then all of these other ways that like the universe may like bring you other things that you never thought of are going to be closed off to you because you have this like these blinders on, right? And so I also think like if you have this mentality where you're having conversations with like almost literally anyone,
Yeah.
then it's able to bring you like new ideas, new opportunities, new connections in a way that like wouldn't be true if you were like, in your case, like I'm only going to focus on people who might want to publish a
Five.
book, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're talking to like people like all over the spectrum of like all over the spectrum, I think.
Yeah.
And if you're only narrowly focused on like people who might buy this thing from you, then you're kind of like closing off pathways to other things and other people.
Well, totally. And so it goes back to the curiosity thing I was talking about earlier. So I will like, I might reach out to a potential client, but it's also, I might just reach out to like a psychic because like I find that stuff like fascinating, like, and we'll just have a talk. But it's also like, so we reached out because I was doing Medium a lot. So I knew like worst case, like even if we didn't get along, we could talk about Medium stuff. So we had this initial commonality and we were in the publications, I think. So I was able to be like, oh, we're both in the startup or whatever. And so like we had initial common ground. So like I couldn't just reach out to like anybody and be like, hey, do you want to just jump on a call? Because you immediately look like you're just spam. Because
Totally.
I operate a lot through like email. But like, yeah, going in with the common ground, like, hey, we're both in the startup, like we're both working on Medium, you want to chat. And then once we're on the call, like you and yours and my case, that was a rough sentence, but you know, we got along really well. So it's like, oh, cool. Now we have like something, there's like a real friendship there. Like,
Yeah.
let's continue this conversation. Let's keep talking. But even if we weren't vibing, it's like, oh, cool. Well, at least we were able to talk about Medium, you know, and then we'll go our separate ways. But going in with that kind of too is like having that common ground or giving them a reason to want to be on that call. Because I've sent so many emails out and then just no one responds. And it's like, okay, well, I need to adjust some things too.
Yeah.
Some of
Totally.
that, it's almost like you're almost like marketing yourself in that, like, you're going to send out a bunch of, in my case, cold emails to people. None of like maybe one or two will respond, a handful will respond, and then it's like then you're developing a real like connection with them once you jump on that call.
Totally. But like the email from you, because like I get, as I'm sure everyone does, I get like a ton of cold emails and like cold LinkedIn messages where it's like, hey, like I'm a like if you're starting off by being like, hey, my name's blah blah blah, and here's the thing I sell. Want to have a call?
Right, right,
Right?
right. Yeah,
It's like, and every time I'm like, delete, delete, I'm like,
right.
unsubscribe, like take me off your list. Um, because that like the email you sent me was like, hey, I see that you publish stuff on Medium. Like, want to chat? And I was
Yeah.
like,
Well,
sure,
I
like,
wasn't. I literally wasn't trying to sell you. I was just like, yeah,
yeah,
you want to just like talk? Like, let's just talk. Like, let's just be friends. But it's yeah, it's but you have to. But I had to be very thoughtful about that kind of. That was like the email. That was like version 7 or whatever that email
mhm,
because no one was responding. If I just said
yeah.
like, hey, we're all both on, you know, so you have to. There's some thought that goes into it too.
Yeah, totally. I think that something that like I'm always trying to think about in my own business or help other people think about in their business is like, what is the an excuse sounds like the wrong word because it is like again, I think it needs to be like a genuine desire to connect with people, not like connect for other reasons. But sometimes you need like an excuse or like a reason of like, hey, like for me, I've been in this place where I've been doing a ton of like what I call listening tour calls because I'm in the process of developing this new product. And it's not me getting on calls being like, hey, I'm developing this product. Like, you want to buy it in 3 months once I develop it? It's like,
Right.
hey, can we talk about like the pain points in your business or like how you think about these things or like how you've tried to solve these problems? And so I've been doing that. I did one with you.
Yeah.
I've been doing that over the last like couple of months, and every time I am just like like every time I have those kinds of conversations with people, I am just amazed by like the amazing generosity of the people in my network.
Mm.
And being able to reach out, like people will just like like extremely busy people who charge like a lot of money for like an hour of their time will just like hop on the phone with me and just like shoot the shit, right? And you're just like, you get to like have a conversation and remember how much you like love these people and why they're such an integral part of like your, again, network is like just not the
Yeah.
perfect word to describe it, but it
Word.
just
Yeah.
like constantly amazes me how generous people are with just like having those kinds of those like genuine conversations where you're like, I just want to connect with another human that I like and
People
like
are wonderful.
talk,
People are wonderful when you're not trying to sell them on stuff. It's like when
right?
you start to sell them, then they're like, then it's like, oh man, like there's so much friction. But yeah, when you're just going in and like what you said, like leading it with curiosity, like I just want to ask you a question. And people, because people love to get asked questions, like I literally just want to know about you and what you're working on. Maybe that will help me, maybe it won't, like, but I just want to learn about you. I think, yeah, that's super. I was thinking of someone I was talking to someone the other day. They were complaining about like, how do you like, I don't know, how do you make, like, how are you making friends? Like, how do you make friends? And I was like, I didn't, they were just more venting out loud. So I didn't really like weigh in with my advice. But all that to say, like, if you use the thing you're working on as kind of like the common ground, and then you're reaching out to people that you think are curious, like if you work in a company and you work remote and you're like feeling really isolated, like you could literally go through your Slack channel and like reach out to all those people and be like, hey, like I work for this company too. Like you seem like you've been at the company for a long time. Like you want to jump on a call and we can talk. And like they can literally just start with that. And then you can just start doing, you can reach out to one person a day and
Yeah.
start making new friendships.
I love it. We'll build the list. Sometimes picture you when we're like on a call and you're like, let me go back to my notes and like tell you about this person that I met the other day. I like picture it as like that old school Rolodex where you're
Oh,
like
yeah, for
thumbing
sure.
through. I know that's not what
Yeah.
your system looks like,
Yeah.
but it does just remind me, like I remember my parents had like the old school Rolodex on their desk and had like all the business cards in there, and they would like thumb through it and be like, oh yeah, I know a guy, and like thumb through it.
Sure. So
I feel like
I use a
I know,
Google thing, but yeah.
but I do feel like, I mean, I think you're absolutely right about the like, it feels gross. Like people don't want to have conversations when you're just like purely trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
But it also is, again, like this is the number one thing that people like ask me how to do. Like the number one thing is like, how do I get better clients? And I'm like, you build relationships with people. And then eventually, whether it's that person or like someone that they know, you're going to get better clients because you will have built a genuine relationship with someone that you like. Like, and about that, like that, just
Yeah.
about that period. Like you built a relationship with someone that you like. And whether it's like they are like, hey, like I remember you, like you're trying to write a book, like I remember I had this like awesome call with this guy named Corey, and like that's what he does, like why don't I connect you,
Mm,
like that would never occur to me if the call was just like, hey, let me tell you how I can like sell you this package about writing a book,
right.
right? Like I would be like, nah.
Well, that's interesting, Bruno, because my thought process on like lead gen has changed. What I love about the friendship calls and like just making new friends in general is the exchange of information and meeting new people.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like client, like word of mouth, like client referrals, I brought on some clients just by being friends with people. They're like, oh, you should talk to so and so. Like that's been good. But I wanted to find a more consistent way to bring it. So lately, I mean, I'm happy to go into lead gen stuff like what we're doing right now because we're using
Yeah.
a couple of tools that have been like consistently booking sales calls for us.
Yeah.
The friend calls, like the making friends, I think has been very valuable in terms of, yeah, like making new friendships, but also sharing information, meeting new people. And then like the more information you know, the more you can like do anything. You could advance in your career, you can advance in your health, whatever, which is super exciting for me, like lights up my brain. I love it. As far as the consistent lead gen stuff, we're using a couple different tools right now. So that way I don't have to I don't have to put too much strain on like my friends to be like, can you know anyone?
Totally.
I could just be on a call with you and just be here and just chat with you and catch up or like learn something new. So anyways, happy to go into that if you want, but I also don't know which direction you want to take it.
No, that would be great. Let's do that.
So for us, again, to give a little bit of context, I'm the co-founder of an agency that so we ghostwrite, edit, design, publish books for busy professionals. We guarantee they'll be bestsellers, and we do all the marketing and the publicity for them. So like getting them featured in places like Business Insider, Yahoo Finance, or getting on ABC or NBC, that kind of stuff. So it's a done for you publishing agency. Anyways, it's high ticket. And all that to say, we were running into, in the early days, or I guess maybe a handful of months ago, we were running into the problem of how to consistently find, high ticket, people willing to pay a high ticket price.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have struck something that's working really well for us. Right now, we're using a couple different tools. One is called Dripify, and the other is called Instantly, and they're both just cold outreach tools. So Instantly is a cold outreach tool for email, and Dripify is cold outreach on LinkedIn, but it's basically the same thing. You put in your lead or your lead list. So on Dripify, you would just plug in like a LinkedIn search, and then you just give them a sequence. And so so it sends a connection request, and then once they accept the connection request, then it says like, hey, like, looks like you've worked on some cool projects. Have you ever thought writing a book? Like, ever thought about writing a book? Like, we worked with a VP like you recently, and now he's doing 5-figure speaking gigs. We got him on the bestsellers list. We could probably do the same for you. Do you want to chat? So it's just all this automated stuff, because it was a lot of the manual outreach that was also driving me crazy. And so we've been booking probably like 10 to 15 sales calls a week now. And so between that and then Instantly, which is called email, and we're actually in the process of bringing on a closer agency. So that way, because I like to talk to people, but sales calls as much as I want to develop like sales as a skill, I realize like someone on my team could do a better job than me, and they will. So we're in the process. We're actually bringing on like a sales like closer agency to come in and handle all of our sales calls for, so we can just work on like working on the client stuff,
Love
focusing
it.
on the lead gen and building that from there. So that's been really nice. So anyone trying to do lead gen stuff, I would check out those tools.
I love the way you position that too, is because like how you said that it takes the pressure off of you like it using those kinds of tools in the background allows you to have conversations like this where you don't have to do that during the conversation, right? And
Right.
like I still think that like to think about the words like high ticket for like a freelancer, um because I think this is another thing that I get asked all the time is like how do you like people want like quote unquote high ticket like retainer type clients like if you're a freelancer, right?
Mhm.
And you have to go into it with the same kind of mentality as if you're selling some sort of like high ticket like service or product like you're selling, or like I sell similar, like not about book publishing but similar types of like quote unquote high ticket things, right? Where you're not, where getting you nurture someone in a relationship to get to a place where they're like ready to purchase something that's high ticket, right? Sometimes you get like that unicorn that's just like they found you're their unicorn and they're your unicorn, where it's
Mhm.
like you're the perfect thing and they're like, yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for, let me write you a check for 30 grand right now or whatever it
Right.
is, right?
Right.
But in most cases, like if someone's going to commit to like quote unquote like high ticket types of prices, whether it's like a product type of thing or an ongoing like service relationship with someone, that's a relationship where you're like nurturing people into it, and it's like built off of, it's most of the time built off of relationships that have been nurtured over time where you're building trust with someone. You're not just like out of the gate like, hey, want to spend 30 grand. But again, like
Right.
there are exceptions where you're like you will have a mutual unicorn and the
Well,
stars will just align.
yeah, well, that's why we're trying to build out a process, because like me or my business partner, his name's also Corey, by the way, which I think is so
Which
fun.
I love.
Yeah, we don't want to be like the bottleneck, like preventing the agency from growing. And so that's why we're trying to like put systems into place where at least we're being really direct with people like, hey, like you're our ideal person. We have this thing that like people like you have used in the past and enjoyed. Like, do you want to talk about it? So at least we're being really direct. Like I'm not like going in with a friend call and then like secretly here comes the pitch, like stick around. Like I'm just we're being super direct with it. And it's been working well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to play it. Like it's like the developing the friendships, getting the network, but it's also, I think it depends a lot on personality too.
Oh,
And like,
totally.
and um, but to speak to what you were talking about in terms of charging high ticket stuff, I was running, so authors.io is what I'm doing now, but I was also running a couple different agencies over the fall. One was a content agency, one was an email marketing agency. And the issues that I was running into with both of those was that like the people we were reaching out to were used to paying low ticket prices. So like I wanted to convert our business to a high ticket business, but I was reaching out to the same people that were paying like $100 for our service or $300 for our service. And it was like, how are we ever going to make this jump? So I think also being really specific about realizing like the demographic needs to change. If you're reaching out to someone who's new in their business versus someone who's been doing their business for 10 years and is really successful at it, like those are two different people.
Totally.
All things
Totally.
considered.
And they need two different things, I think. Like I think that I mean, it always depends on like what the product is, right? So like this may not be true of like every single product, but like um some like sometimes the people who there are people who like really are gonna like benefit, like the low ticket item is like exactly what they need, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's a huge mindset shift. And it's a huge, like it's basically how like the type of freelancing that I do, which is like different than all the like coaching and
Mm,
content stuff that I do. But the type of freelancing that I do is like it is what I guess you would refer to as like high ticket. But basically like it's the way I get those types of contracts, it is referral only. Like I don't advertise it for it at all. Like if you went to my website, you would never even know that I do
mm.
large scale project management for research teams on the back end, right?
Right.
Like you go to my website, I don't even advertise that stuff because those people don't even know that I have a website, right?
Right.
Like it's all word of mouth. It's all like me building personal individual relationships with people, and
Yeah.
then like having me in the back of their mind, or having me in the back of their mind when one of their friends is like, hey, I'm about to launch this huge project, like I don't have the right capacity to do it. So but it is like definitely a mental shift for me as I think about applying that same kind of mentality to the coaching side of my business, which is something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last few months. But it's definitely, it's a shift. It's a shift for sure.
Yeah. And I think I think it goes back to what we were talking about of in terms of like it being a preference thing. And also, I think it depends on uh, like the capacity of the business. So like if you're a one person team, then like we're just like strictly like bringing on clients based off friendships or referrals. Like that's probably the best way to do it
Totally.
because you don't have the capacity to like you can't hunt and whatever the saying. I don't. You can't like find them and like fulfill the contract or whatever
Yeah.
at the same time. So like it makes sense. Like as one ends, someone else says like, hey, I have a friend. And then but if you change that model to now it's like you're an agency, you have a team. It's like oh, I can't just survive off of like my friends throwing me a bone every 6 months,
Right.
whatever. I need to like systemize this because otherwise we're gonna be in trouble. So I think it depends on like where you're at. It depends what you want to. Like some people don't want that, or some people don't want to like do referrals. So I think there's so many different factors. But the other thing I was going to say too about the high ticket versus low ticket, and it may not, and it's not being right for one person or another. Like, so we like it depends on the end goal too of like what your service provides. So like for us, it wouldn't make sense to work with someone new on their like career along their journey because like the end goal for us is to help them land like 5-figure speaking gigs or start doing more consulting or like move out of their corporate position into start doing like their own thing, get them exposure for their coaching business, whatever. So like it wouldn't make sense for someone who's like brand new to like work with us because they just wouldn't get the benefit. So I think it
Right.
depends a lot on what the end goal is too.
Yeah. That is so true. And that like just to like tie it all in a neat little bow, before we wrap up, I mean, I think that's like the answer, right? Is like what I am realizing more and more, and especially as I work with freelancers, is like it's totally fine. Like I think people use the term like lifestyle business, which sounds like it sounds like it's like, oh, aren't you cute with your little lifestyle business? And I'm
Sure.
like, no, like that, like there's definitely that is like a perfectly valid, like it again,
And it
like
takes work too to have one
it,
of those. Like,
it is work, and it's like in a lot of ways like for some people more fulfilling because you're like I'm working in these like very intimate like one-on-one ways with people that I like genuinely like, right? And not to say that you can't do that with like a higher ticket like an agency or a bigger business, but you just get a little bit farther removed.
mhm.
And so I think it's about like being able like knowing like really starting with like what do you want, which like totally changes over time. Like maybe you have a lifestyle business and then like a year later you're like maybe I want like a bigger thing, or maybe you have a bigger thing and like a year later you're like maybe I want a smaller thing.
Right.
But it is about like that like fundamental like what is the need that it's like meeting for you, um and the need that you're meeting for your clients too.
Totally. I was working with a coach recently and she kind of gave me this like insight, which is like changed everything. I would, I would do something and I would start a business, whatever, and it wouldn't work. And be like, oh, I'm like so upset, or I would test something and or I would like do some sort of marketing campaign, it wouldn't work. And she told me like, see, everything is a test. So like, so if something doesn't work, it's like, oh, cool, that was a test. And now I know what doesn't work. And now I can test something else. And so same thing with like the business model. Like I'm going to test being a freelancer. I'm going to test starting an agency. I'm going to test, building an app, whatever. Like test it, see how it feels. And if it doesn't work well for you, then like good. Now you learned and you can do something else. Like before I was doing what I'm doing now, I ran a blog and like my days were spent with like me writing. And I was like, feels amazing. Like I never want to work with clients one-on-one. I never want to do service stuff. And then, when I decided to make a change and I was talking to like some friends about like partnering up on stuff, I'm like, oh, this actually sounds really cool. Like, let me try this. And now I'm really enjoying it. And so you just don't know, like, it's all just testing things and preference, like you said, preferences change.
I love it. I think that is the perfect gem to end on. We'll definitely have you back again, Corey, because there's many other things that I'd love to talk to you about. But thank you so much for being here for this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And it's always so much fun talking. I'm really happy we were able to do this.
Yeah, me too.